driving just under an hour. But I'll be on the interstate about probably 40 minutes. And I know this stretch really well. It's a stretch between my city and my parents' city. Today I thought I would try to pick a topic and stay more or less on one topic. I struggle with that generally, and I've never done this format. I've written poems, composed music, I've improvised poems and improvised music. In ways I've engaged those things with others. Solo improvisation for driver. I think I figured out my topic. So I believe I have 3 maybe. We'll find out. Special interests. I guess what I'll try to do is just map what those are and how they connect. I'll try to also give more specifics. I did a test like this last night, and it was all kind of vague when I went back and listened to it. I wasn't naming names and giving specifics. I guess I was trying to see what would a general overview be, and I was also just intending to make a test just to kind of see, did this even work? Does this audio work this way? Does this video work this way? Is this viable as a means of communication, relation? I was born in 1983. My mom's from another country. And I grew up with very little awareness of the culture that she grew up in or around. In elementary school, I always felt part inside, part outside of culture. And I mean on any scale. The family unit, a class, an elementary school class, a homeroom, or whatever. Any grouping of people, I always had individuals that I really related to, but felt on the outside of the group as a whole. some of this. But also, it's possible that it's something I just inherited, and she felt that way as a child. I've never directly asked that question, and I think she would almost take offense. I don't think there's a flattering. It's not about flattery. I don't think there's a way for someone who has unprocessed depths. I think it would feel like a confrontation. To be asked, hey, were you like me? Did you always feel on the outside of things? Anyway, I don't feel that way now. But also I'm 41. And I think I first distinctly felt not that way when I was 30. And at first it was just in one little environment, and then it spread to all of my life, where now I can be in a room with 50 people, and if we're out of alignment with each other, one, I know there's people in that room who would be more aligned with me than whatever's prevailing. If only they heard my perspective, they would say, yeah, I think the same, or I feel that way too, and I'm so glad you voiced that, because I know, because this happens. So there's, I'm not arrogantly thinking that, well, I've just considered this more deeply than everyone else, and if we disagree, they're wrong. But I have a little bit of an obsessive rumination that can sometimes get in my way, and sometimes really serves me. And maybe at that point you don't call it rumination anymore. I don't know if rumination necessarily has like the negative denotation all the time. But anyway, so these special interests. So this outsiderness, or the sense of outsiderness, combined with a certain kind of curiosity, openness to hunger, maybe, for wonder, a fascination with what was novel, or, and not superficially, and not novel for novelty's sake, but what was new to me anyway was always fascinating, or not always, but generally fascinating. And I had this sort of restless desire to see what I didn't already know. When I was very young, and this definitely sounds straight up autistic, my parents said that I would ask, where'd this road lead? Where's this road lead? Can I see the end of this? And one of the descriptions I had as a child was, I was looking for something that was off the edge of the map. Like if you think about a video game, and you're programmed to have this range, and actually, the programmers didn't even bother to extend the map any further in that direction. You're just at the edge, right? I had this feeling that in life, in all ways, and I don't just mean spatially, that's the spot I wanted to really see. You know, what's like just over the guardrails of what is charted. Yeah, and I know there's people like I've sometimes done who go clicking around on satellite imagery to try to see what is there something that's just completely unlike what I can imagine, or are there places where nobody knows what that structure there is, or nobody knows what that natural feature is? This is a pursuit of novelty, but again, it's like with a wish that it will connect you to depth, not superficial stimulation. And I see my son, who's 7, he'll think a thought, share it with us, and say, specifically with me really, he knows that I'll entertain this stuff. He'll say, "Can you search for that on the internet? Do you think anyone said that before?" Or, "Do you think anyone else is having this conversation right now, anywhere else on the planet?" Interesting. Why does a 7-year-old want to know that? I get it. I was exactly the same. In that way. Not saying, and I'm not going to project that my mom and my son are identical carbon copies of me. That's definitely not the case, but there's certain features. Held in common. Yeah, so if what is known and generally shared does not feel like home to me, I guess it's my job to look other places. This is what the childhood searching felt like. I guess it's my job to look other places. So, supernatural fiction, not some things that I guess you would classify as horror, but that word doesn't resonate with me the right way, because I don't like a lot of horror. I think a lot of it is superficial stimulation, which sure, there's a time and place for that too, but it's not scratching this particular itch. This particular need, which feels very deep, is about wonder. It's about stimulating thought to move in a new direction that has not already been explored. And yes, childhood me wanted some evidence of God, wanted some evidence of ghosts, wanted some evidence of life after death. Wanted to explore out-of-body experience. I was looking for my kind of domains, realms. I don't feel that anxiety anymore. For one thing, I've met a lot more people who have a parent or two from elsewhere and who had a similar experience in some way or another. And sometimes I feel like we can identify each other. It's not visually, I don't think my appearance screams. I'm gonna check, see what I think actually. I don't think it screams not white, not American, but I don't know what it is. Yeah, I just end up meeting others with similar family stories, and I don't know, I guess we tend to be a little complicated. Our stories have been complicated by such experience. So I have an uneasy relationship with culture. Not with individuals. Not at all. I feel very at home in many environments. And I'm not one to judge others harshly, but if there's a thing I judge kind of harshly, it's people's inability to operate in different contexts. Yeah, I really prize adaptability. Like I believe the opposite of that. You need to muscle your way through things socially, or as far as your life goes, or anything. It's the wrong approach. The right approach is to be tender enough that you feel, that you bend flexibly without breaking. Very rigid people however strong, know that there's a limit to what they can withstand. fact, I actually think this, I don't know, whatever, I'm making up a hypothetical straw man here, but anyway, yeah, I value flexibility, adaptability, rather than having a clear-cut objective in mind. Most times I think it serves to be responsive, because our constraints, our experience, our container, everything is always changing. The people around us are always changing. The world around us is always changing. Our own self, the thing we consider ourself, this little I'll be careful with the use of that word there. The thing we consider our own body is an ever-changing biome, a little ecosystem, right? And it's like shedding some cells here and regenerating a little bit there, and shedding out some microorganisms here and ingesting some more there, in a constant exchange with our surroundings, right? And when we too rigidly try to map out a trajectory that will make sense for us, we're usually failing to recognize that we are changing, and so is everything around us. And it leads to a lot of frustration, for most people who are that way. I believe planning is great, and actually I just decided yesterday to try to step up that sort of initiative in myself, to try to be more of a planner, especially to try to coordinate others and make events even happen, because usually for me, if I end up seeing a friend or something, I'm out of work, on my way home I realize, oh, I don't have kids tonight. I should see if so-and-so wants to get a coffee or get dinner. But when was the last time I invited someone over 2 weeks in advance, or invited someone to do any particular thing 2 weeks in advance? It's just not who I am, and or it's not who I've been, because we're always changing, right? And people value my adaptability, but anyway, so this special interest I was trying to describe, it's like, it's led a lot of places. And like I said too, maybe my mom was the same way when she was a kid, and maybe my son feels it the same way. Some of our conversations definitely make it seem like there's a lot in common there. I call it, and this is, I think, according to certain people who have sort of a trustworthy narrative about these things, it seems like a kind of autistic trait to have excessive sense of self-consciousness. And another one is a real strong relationship with veracity, with truth-telling. And in a lot of ways, I was sort of unaccountable for a long time. But it's because excessive self-consciousness led to shame and guilt. And the shame and guilt completely mucked up my relationship to truth-telling. Yeah, I wasn't really accountable. And I wasn't really present fully. I couldn't be. I didn't know how to be. And a analogy I can make is, there were certain things I hadn't handled really ethically. And then it was a gradual process to learn how to face that. And even to own it. Before, or at my worst, I couldn't face it at all. And it was like, this is where the analogy goes. It was like, imagine you got away with a really horrendous crime. But you knew there was a chance that you'd be found out. That there was some kind of evidence you left, and you were aware of that fact. That it might take a while, but eventually it could be the knot could be detangled. And I think the impact that has on a person is, it's probably very hard to fully commit to life. Because if you imagine your life could be uprooted anytime, and you're almost just every day it almost feels like there's more tension because this is one more day you've gotten away with your horrendous crime. How much longer can it go on before it all comes crashing down, right? So how much are you going to build up a life filled with vibrancy and vital relationships and all this stuff? Who's going to really have the effort or most people I don't think are going to commit to their own experience when, as a stupid song that I wrote 20 years ago said, there's just this shadow everywhere, and it scares me. In the mirror, I saw that reflection I tried to leave behind. Oof. Yeah. So that's what happens when you live with unprocessed experience. You live in fear of your own self, in fear of your past, in shame. especially if you're excessively self-conscious and you don't process. So anyway, that's how I used to feel that way. Maybe that peaked around 20, and then it was majorly resolving around 30, and I had fewer and fewer ethical lapses. There were still some pretty major ones, and a lot of times they were kind of passive, and now, this year, this week, this day, the big change in me is not being avoidant. Recognizing the opportunities for engagement and not hesitating, especially if it's possible to help someone else in some way. I think the two ingredients for personal growth are helping others, self-observation. Self-observation. I don't have to say the whole spiel, right? Everyone knows it now. At least. Self-observation without judgment. Why do I do these things I do? Just let that analyst run in the background. Not run, let them sit in the background running their little calculations or whatever. And don't task them with deciding what's right or wrong, what works or doesn't work, etc. Just pay attention. That's it. Pay attention to experience. Engage actively in your experience. The end of it's not really a poem, but of a journal, I guess, from a night or two ago, or a day or two ago, said, the end of it was something like, more hands, referencing, the kind of Buddhist bodhisattva idea, but more hands. More present for others is more present for myself, too. Something like that. Whatever, it wasn't meant to be beautiful writing, but I think the point is exactly right. Find ways to be helpful. I don't know why everyone's go-to example is people asking for help moving. I've never minded helping someone move. That just doesn't seem... Well, I would hate to help myself move, because historically that's been me sitting with 100 random objects in each room, like, I just don't know. Do I need to keep this stuff or get rid of it? Does this even work well enough to justify keeping it? Will I repair it one day? Do I still like these things? I just don't know. Subjecting anyone else to that sounds indeed like horrible, but I think if someone wants you to carry some boxes in and out of a truck, that sounds awesome. Anyway, so yeah, that's the kind of classic go-to for some reason, right? If a friend asks for help moving. But if a friend asks for help moving, I think a lot of us, our very, very first impulse is to say no. And I think what happens is we scan as rapidly as we can through our Rolodex of justifications for that no. Oh, I'm so sorry I have my kid that day. Oh, I'm so sorry I have an appointment at that time, or whatever, it's like the moon is a really beautiful little tiny sliver. Yeah, so we look for, subconsciously even, it's just automatic almost. We look for a really quick, passable justification for a no. Something that this person who's standing in front of me asking for my help will buy as something other than personally insulting. Yeah, that's just normal, I think, response to things, and especially in this era, because we are so bombarded with demands on our attention, demands on our time, and most of us are not very good at managing those demands. And so our attention is stretched perpetually thin, and we can feel how tenuous it all is, and the idea of adding any one more thing to the queue sounds unimaginable. But the right answer is probably usually, if someone's trusted, if someone is valued, if someone has a place in your life and you've elected for them to have an ongoing place in your life, the answer should probably be yes to most things. And even if they're not your favorite things to do, I bet when you're doing them, you almost always would have the response, the internal feeling, oh, I'm so glad I did this. It's like the plot of a Frog and Toad story or something, right? Like, I hoped if I pulled the covers up over my head, they wouldn't ask for my help. I'll just agonize in bed miserably alone. Or I could get up, be cold for a second, put some clothes on, get my socks and shoes on, and then be happy to be sharing experience with someone I value. Right? It's like obvious which choice is correct, but again, we all feel like so tapped out that it's just hard to recognize how truly simple the equation is. If you don't show up, your life is actually passing you by. Showing up is all there is, as Kate said on the phone yesterday. Showing up is all there is. If you don't do it, you'll feel like there's not enough time at the end, and you'll have all these ways, why didn't I Why didn't I express the thing right when I had the chance? Why didn't I act on the thing right when I had the chance? I'm here. Bye-bye.